Many unions and public school advocates don't believe there is any good reason for parents to have a say in where their children go to school.
Popular schools slapped with restrictions to control runaway demand.
School catchment zones may be annoying for some parents, but they help ensure equality for everyone.
Record low enrolments at Australian government schools should ring alarm bells, experts say.
Opposed to competition and faith-based schooling, these advocates claim that non-government schools are elitist, overfunded, and are responsible for inequality in Australia's schooling system. And now faced with more taxes, threats to their religious ethos, penalties for building facilities with their own money, and exclusion from school funding agreements, the crusade against non-government schools and school choice is in full swing. If the critics get their way, bureaucrats will decide for you where your children can and cannot go to school. But are these attacks fair, or are misunderstandings driving the mob? Let's take a closer look. In a free country, it's reasonable for parents to have some choice about where and how their children are educated. Parents are responsible for the well-being of their children, and despite what their children may think, know what is best for them. Having a pluralistic schooling system allows parents to freely choose a school that suits their child's needs, no matter where or what kind of school it happens to be. But there are 4 misguided scare campaigns around school choice. The first myth is that school choice is only valued by a wealthy elite few, but this simply isn't the case. Increasingly, parents from all walks of life are voting with their feet, making the most of a robust system that offers a variety of non-government schools, including religious and non-religious ones. Record numbers of students are now attending these non-government schools. School choice is also valued by parents who send their children to government schools as well, despite the best efforts of government to eliminate it. You see, under zoning laws, a wave of bureaucracy, regulations and red tape try to trap parents and make them only use schools within their local catchment. They try to choose for parents what schools they can choose, but a great number of parents don't cop this Stalinist policy. Instead, they jump through many hurdles to get their child to a government school outside of their local area because it better fits their interests. This could be a school that's on their way to work or where their relatives go. In Sydney, around 1/4 of parents have done this, while in Victoria, this figure is around 40%. Despite this, school choice is still seen by critics as just an excuse for some students to get a leg up over others. This brings us to the second myth, that non-government schools get more taxpayer funding than government schools at the expense of government school students. And while non-government schools robbing the coffers in a zero-sum game makes for a good headline, it simply isn't the case. You see, there isn't just one pot of money that government and non-government schools fight over. There are different pots of funding for different sectors of schooling, and one does not take away from the other. For example, state and federal government funding is allocated to these different sectors in different proportions. So if the allocations for one school sector go up, this doesn't mean that those for another school sector go down. There is a third myth related to this, that non-government schools are rorting the system by charging very high fees and receiving huge taxpayer dollars at the same time. Often, those who sprout this myth don't believe that non-government schools should receive any taxpayer funding at all. But these claims ignore 2 important points. First, where a non-government school's parents are wealthy and can afford to pay high costs, the level of government funding for that school goes down. Now, this is not the case for government schools, where funding is consistent no matter how well off parents are. Second, non-government schools of all kinds save the taxpayers money. This is because less taxpayer money is spent on non-government school students compared to those students being in government schools. Recent estimates place the savings around $4.6 billion each year. If the warfare over private and public schools spurred on by populists made sense, we would see huge differences in academic results on a sector-by-sector basis. This brings us to the fourth and final myth, that non-government schools wildly outperform government schools. Yet the simple fact is that there's no real difference in academic achievement between government and non-government schools after accounting for students' socio-economic differences. In fact, differences depend more on postcodes, not school sectors. We see differences in achievement between schools from poor and rich areas, no matter the sector of schooling. But what will help children succeed no matter where they live or what school they attend is the quality of teaching that they're receiving. Australia's educational problems are not going to be fixed by scapegoating school choice and non-government schools at every turn and spreading myths about them. They are an important part of Australia's schooling system, valued by parents and students alike. Supporting school choice means supporting millions of children as they gain the knowledge and skills needed for a great future.